Today we're getting into the latest Tesla news, including new affordable models confirmed by Tesla on their earnings call, Tesla's incredibly aggressive goals for unsupervised FSD coming later this year, the big list of Tesla incentives available throughout this quarter, and more, so let's get into it. First up today, Tesla just held their earnings call, which overall was in line with analyst expectations, but it of course was a decline in overall sales and overall income. They reported a $0.09 billion GAAP operating income, $1.2 billion GAAP net income, and $1.4 non-GAAP net income. Operating cash flow was $2.5 billion, and then they had a $0.2 billion decrease in cash and investments, which brings that to $36.8 billion. For profit going forward, they said, quote, "We expect our hardware-related profits to be accompanied by an acceleration in AI, software, and fleet-based profits." Then overall for their summary, they said Q2 2025 was a seminal point in Tesla's history, the beginning of our transition from leading the electric vehicle and renewable energy industries to also becoming a leader in AI, robotics, and related services. Our first Robotaxi service launched in Austin in June. While the service is limited in initial scope, we believe our approach to autonomy, a camera-only architecture with neural networks trained on data from our global fleet of millions of vehicles, allows us to continually improve safety, rapidly scale the network, and improve profitability. Then when it comes to the automotive page, they said we continue to make progress preparing for the launch of additional models this year. They made it pretty clear on this car that they are doing what I was suspecting. They started production in the first half of 2025, but they still plan to launch this car later after the tax credit goes away. They even said, quote, "Plans for new vehicles that will launch in 2025 remain on track, including initial production of a more affordable model in first half of 2025. So that came and went, but the more affordable model has started at least initial production. Then when we look at their production capacity overall, everything is pretty much the same, except they list the Cybercab and Tesla Semi as under construction, and then the Roadster is still TBD as to where it will be built, and the status there is still design development. That will be disappointing to a lot of people since we're still waiting on that car, and now it seems like it might be a full 10 years or longer before they bring that to production, if they ever do. And there I mean 10 years from when it was initially announced in 2017. As for full self-driving and Robotaxi expansion, they posted photos of them testing this system, FSD supervised, in Paris, London, Sydney, and Rome. So they're planning to expand soon as much as they can, but of course regulatory approval is a big hurdle there. Now for this next section, I want to thank Sawyer Merritt for all of his tweets that I'm going to be referencing. For Tesla's Robotaxi service, Elon Musk said, quote, "We have done what we said we were going to do. That doesn't mean we're always on time, but we get it done, and our naysayers are sitting there with egg on their face." Well, they've done part of this, but I think people are still very much waiting for unsupervised FSD, and then FSD that is unsupervised in many more areas than just Austin, Texas. So I don't think those people really are sitting there yet. Maybe they're getting close, and maybe Tesla will achieve this, but I think it's too soon to say that, especially when there's a safety driver in the passenger seat. And that kind of was the theme with this call and is the theme with many Tesla earnings calls. Elon Musk has a lot to say and predicts a lot of big things that sometimes come to fruition, or at least come to fruition later than expected, typically. So with that said, Tesla's goal for FSD and the Robotaxi is very aggressive. They want autonomous ride-hailing to cover half the population of the US by the end of this year. They said they're working on expanding in Florida, Arizona, California, Nevada, and more. The end of 2025 is less than 6 months away, so I think this seems extremely unlikely. But it seems like they set these really ambitious goals so that they actually work extremely hard to get there. Either way, they do plan to at least expand beyond Waymo shortly. For the Robotaxi expansion, they said, quote, "It's going to get even bigger and longer, well in excess of the competition. It will be expanded in the next couple weeks." But so far, the Robotaxi, of course, isn't actually contributing in a positive way to Tesla's income. And Elon Musk acknowledged this, saying, quote, "My guess is it will have a material impact on our financials around the end of next year." So that's cool to see with the Robotaxi, but of course the thing they've been promising for a long time is unsupervised FSD for customer cars. So what is the status there? Quote, "As we are confident about safety and geographic areas, we will loosen up on how somebody has to be laser focused on the road using FSD. That's been a common complaint. So first they're going to try to loosen that up a little bit, but then they of course want to get to unsupervised FSD. And he said that their plan is to have FSD unsupervised available for personal use in some US cities by late 2025. Now, of course, if this comes, it would be a very big deal, and I would say it wouldn't even matter if it comes in another 6 months or 12 months. Being able to buy a personal car that can do unsupervised FSD would be a huge deal, especially if you live in one of those cities that it can do initially. But of course, for this initial version, it's only for their latest cars with hardware 4, and they talked about this a little bit, because they've been promising this feature for years, even for older cars that had what they called hardware 3. When asked about this, Tesla said that they are laser focused on solving hardware 4 unsupervised FSD first. Once they achieve that, then they will go back and assess the best approach for upgrading hardware 3 cars. But what about AI 5 and hardware 5 into the future? It seems like there are probably some customers out there waiting to get a hardware 5 version of these cars. Because is hardware 4 just going to be the next one in a line of hardware versions that Tesla will end up having to upgrade in the future to achieve full self-driving? Well, it seems that that wait is going to be quite some time. Tesla still has a lot of work to do with hardware 4, and Elon Musk said they expect volume production of hardware 5 to come in late 2026, and then it might slip into 2027. So Tesla's lineup probably won't actually have that chip within it until about 2027, but of course it should bring a lot of capability. Elon said it will be a profound game changer. It's so powerful, we'll have to nerf to some degree for markets outside of the US because it blows way past the export restrictions. So it does seem that for customers waiting, it's going to be quite some time more for a wait there. And Tesla actually talked about still having a lot of capability that they can get out of hardware 4. Quote, "We think we can almost 10x the parameter count on existing hardware 4. Still lots of improvement on existing hardware to happen." So of course this will be disappointing news for hardware 3 customers because they're sitting there with kind of an older version of full self-driving, or at least not the best version that Tesla has at this point. And as far as a roadmap for an upgrade there, they're basically saying we'll get there when we get there. But of course, for Elon and Tesla, this, along with the Optimus robot, are really the future. Elon said, "Autonomy is the story. It is what amplifies the value to stratospheric levels." And they talked about autonomous deliveries that should be expanding beyond just that one that they already did, this time in Fremont, again, by the end of the year. For personal full self-driving, Tesla has seen more and more people actually buying it as of late, and that's because of the latest versions that are performing very well. As a matter of fact, they said with version 13, they've seen about a 25% increase in the take rate of FSD. So that's an increase of people buying Tesla vehicles, but then deciding to option FSD. That's really the version that has delivered on a lot of what Tesla talked about for years at this point. And the latest version of FSD, especially on hardware 4 cars, is very, very good. It's so good that we're seeing Tesla owners driving an average of about 11 million miles a day on this FSD supervised system. So that shows that customers are using it, and then at the same time, Tesla is collecting a ton of data there. Now, regarding the Optimus robot, Tesla is working on version 3 of this robot, which Elon Musk said is an exquisite design. It will be the biggest product ever. I think a lot of people doubt this because a lot of people don't seem to want humanoid robots at a large scale, but it does seem to be something that's coming not just from Tesla, but from tons of companies. They're planning to have a prototype of version 3 by the end of this year, and now they're aiming for volume production of it in 2026. So of course, a lot of that is big talk, but for the meantime, what are we expecting for Tesla's new vehicles? They were talking about more affordable vehicles. They were supposed to come within the first half of the year, and now they've kind of pushed that to be production started in the first half of 2025, and now they're coming later this year. Again, they said we continue to make progress preparing for the launch of additional models this year, and they made it clear on this call that they did start production in the first half, and even said plans for new vehicles that will launch in 2025 remain on track, including initial production of a more affordable model in the first half of 2025. So basically, for the rest of this quarter, we won't be seeing anything new from Tesla, at least nothing new that comes in at a cheaper price point. Tesla plans to unveil these truly more affordable cars in Q4 of 2025, and this really at this point is pushing back a pushed back release of an altered plan of making a truly affordable $25,000 vehicle. But I will say this latest pushback does actually make sense given the timing of the tax credit going away. That's new and only came about in recent weeks that it was ending on September 30th, so that is something Tesla has had to adjust to. So in the meantime, we have all the incentives that Tesla is offering right now, which I'll get into depth on a little bit later in this video. But Tesla's CFO did talk about this, saying, quote, "We have rolled out all our planned incentives already, and we'll start paring them back as we start to sell. If you're in the US and are looking to buy a car, place your order now, as we may not be able to guarantee delivery for orders placed in the later part of August and beyond." Essentially, Tesla is banking on the tax credit operating as its own incentive here, and they're expecting that inventory levels will drop towards the end of the quarter as people are trying to rush and take advantage of this tax credit. Of course, they're incentivizing people to buy their cars now in order to take advantage, which is convenient for them as a sales tactic, but they're also being clear here about the fact that they won't have any more deals. I think a lot of people, like myself, expect the deals to get more aggressive quarter to quarter at the end of each quarter, because that's what they've been doing for a while now. But here they're saying they're not actually going to be doing that this particular quarter. So of course, those deals are for their current lineup, the rear-wheel drive and long-range Model Y, possibly a performance model releasing before the end of this quarter, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if also that gets pushed to Q4 to focus on existing inventory and existing production capacity. Then you have the rear-wheel drive, long-range, and performance Model 3, and of course all the versions they sell of the Model S, Model X, and Cybertruck. Again, I'll detail all of those incentives in just a minute here. So what about that more affordable, cheaper, possibly smaller model, or whatever it ends up being? Well, of course, Tesla says they've already built their first ones and they plan to launch in Q4, but then Elon Musk did clearly say on this call, it's just a Model Y. Let the cat out of the bag there. This is surprising to hear, but I'm sure Tesla has been getting so many questions about this new affordable model, and they know internally they're basically just going to be launching a stripped back version of the Model Y, and that's what they're talking about here. So Elon Musk finally just decided to say it's just a Model Y. There's not actually some brand new vehicle or new vehicle shape. That's what many, including myself, have been speculating on at this point, that this really would just be a stripped back Model Y, kind of like they just did with the long-range rear-wheel drive Cybertruck. Something that brings textile seats, gets rid of the rear screen, simplifies the interior features, maybe doesn't even have a rear light bar, has a lower range, and more. So of course, that's not very exciting. A lot of people have been wanting to see an actual new model. Even if it looks like a Model Y, but it's a little bit smaller, that would be exciting to people. I think this Model YL that Tesla announced over in China would be something people would actually get excited about in the United States. And I wouldn't be surprised if we do see that come to be in the United States in 2026. Interestingly though, Tesla did not mention that car one single time on this earnings call. Regardless of what comes in the future, though, I do think this stripped-back version of the Model Y is important for Tesla to do. It's very easy for them to do, and if they can get the price point right, it is something that would sell, because it would still be a very capable, functional car, it just wouldn't be quite as luxurious. But then, of course, there's the angle that this is what Tesla is doing today, but it's just because things are further delayed. Of course, they're trying to see what happens with this Cybercab, because if they could truly solve full self-driving in its unsupervised form by next year, all they would need to make is the Cybercab in theory, or at least continue production of their current cars, because whatever price they come in at could be worth it with unsupervised FSD that no one has to pay attention to. But others like Gene Munster have expected that something different is still coming for 2026. Maybe a smaller car from Tesla, a smaller form factor hatchback. This could probably be based on the Model Y, or could even be an expanded version of the Model 3. Tesla has been spotted out in the wild testing what some think is a smaller version of this car, although once people have seen these photos, they came in with the knowledge that Tesla was probably making a smaller car, so that probably skewed things with confirmation bias there. And it's always hard to tell with these blurry drone photos that are taken from a very far distance. You can't really get an accurate measurement here. In any case, these have been spotted, and they can kind of look like a smaller Model Y, but it does seem like it may just be the lens. But let's just say that that is true. It seems like Tesla will probably launch that car that Elon said is just a Model Y later this year. In Q4, we could be expecting to see a stripped back version of this car, maybe that comes in under $40,000. And then into 2026, we'll see what's going on with autonomy in the Cybercab, and Tesla will as well, and then they'll decide if they want to actually make a smaller version of this car. However, regarding his prediction of that smaller car coming in 2026, Gene did follow up after the call saying, quote, "I bet it uses the same body with scaled back features. This is just like Apple does with the iPhone. But if it really looks just like the Y, it will cannibalize the Y. I have to think more about that trade-off." The day after Tesla's earnings call, 2 more prototypes were spotted at their Fremont factory, which is pretty interesting to see. We are expecting the performance model, which they could be testing at this point, covered up, but this appears to at least be one of the new affordable models. Some speculate this could be a shorter Model Y, but this appears to just be the normal size. So I think this is the more affordable model, and it looks like this has a black roof instead of a glass roof. That is something people have noticed in other sightings of covered up Model Ys, especially at Tesla's Fremont factory. So this very likely could be that. It's definitely good news for this car coming in Q4. Tesla is very actively out testing it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they actually really ramp up production throughout Q3 and kind of have a backlog going into Q4 that they just don't want to sell before the tax credit goes away. At the same time, with Elon Musk's comments saying it's just a Model Y, technically that new Model Y out of China, the Model YL, is just a Model Y. It's a Model Y that's longer, so maybe a new version that could be shorter would actually be considered just another Model Y. It would be to most customers because it looks pretty much the same. However, it would bring a pretty big change to that car that could make it quite popular. So in general, on its surface, Tesla doesn't have that much exciting stuff to talk about right now. They're basically saying, hey, we're going to make a new, more affordable car in Q4, but it's just going to be the same exact car that we make today. The real excitement for them will come if they can actually achieve any of those goals that Elon Musk set out to achieve for this year or into 2026. If they can actually deliver unsupervised FSD to customers in certain cities by the end of this year, that will be a pretty big deal that changes the face of how things are looking as far as them just kind of making the same cars that they have for years. If it's the same car but it can drive itself and you don't have to pay attention, that's a very big deal. But of course, that very much remains to be seen. I am excited to see what happens with Robotaxi expansion though, and what areas of California they expand to, since that's where I live. Next up today, Tesla is always running different deals, and at this point, they're being very clear about it. In the past, we'd have to collect them on this channel, or people would tweet about them and collect all of Tesla's deals and promos that they're currently running, and they would be spread out across their website. But now they have a new current offers page, and I think this is generally a good idea for Tesla. On their current offers page, it clearly indicates limited inventory, take delivery today. All promotions are subject to change or end at any time. But for every single Tesla vehicle, there are a few different offers. First is the $7,500 lease incentive, and this is available when you take delivery by September 30th. There's also the $1,000 American Heroes discount, the full self-driving free month trial, free FSD transfer, and a free month of premium connectivity included with every car. For the Model Y specifically, you get one free upgrade on eligible inventory, meaning if it's an upgraded paint option or upgraded wheels, you'll get one of those for free, which is a pretty good discount because that can be $2,000 or so. Then, of course, there's the $7,500 tax credit available at the point of sale if you're purchasing. Leases start at $349 for 36 months on the Model Y, and then they have a new 3.49% APR financing deal for the Model Y. For the Model 3, they have that same free upgrade on inventory, there's the tax credit, and then leasing starts as low as $299 a month for 24 months. They're also including 18 months of free supercharging, which if you're someone who road trips a lot and plans to do it a lot after your delivery, could be a great deal, but that is only available on cash purchases. Then they also have 0% APR available if you're buying FSD. However, the caveat here that people are starting to notice is not only does this apply for buying FSD, it also applies for transferring FSD. So there's that FSD transfer that we've been talking about. And if you're a current Tesla owner that wants to transfer full self-driving to a new Tesla, with the Model 3, if you do that, it's free to transfer and then you'll get the 0% APR financing discount, which is pretty good. You could end up with a pretty great deal when you're financing at 0% APR. But if you don't transfer FSD, they still have a deal of 2.49% APR financing. Then for the Cybertruck, there's the tax credit, of course, then 0% APR financing with purchase or transfer of full self-driving, which is something that's new there. And then there's a free 20-inch Cyber wheel upgrade available. That's about a $3,500 deal, but I think at this point they're probably sitting on a lot of inventory with those wheels, which is why they're offering this. For the Model S and X, they're offering that same one free upgrade option, and those are all the current deals that Tesla is running, outside of certain inventory and demo vehicle discounts that you can see for your particular area by going to Tesla's inventory website. It's currently July, and the federal tax credit ends at the end of this quarter. So that's going to operate as its own kind of incentive for Tesla, because if you don't take delivery of a car by September 30th, you will not get access to that tax credit, and you won't get the Lease $7,500 incentive either. Tesla automatically includes that lease incentive, and you'll see it on the breakdown if you lease a new Tesla vehicle. And it's something that's kind of a loophole, because if you don't qualify for the federal EV tax credit on a new purchase, it will still qualify on the lease. So for some, it can be a great way to take advantage of that if you don't actually qualify for the credit. Either way, it will be interesting to see how things develop over the next couple months, and then if waiting is a good idea, or if Tesla's inventory will actually start drying up, because people are trying to take delivery before the end of the quarter when the tax credit goes away. As we talked about earlier in this video, Tesla indicated that these deals are what they're going to have for the rest of this quarter. So usually I'd say I'll be sure to keep you posted on the additional deals Tesla is adding throughout the quarter, but for now it seems like I might actually be keeping you posted on what deals they remove and how limited inventory is getting as we approach the end of this quarter and the removal of the tax credit. Last up today, we talked a lot earlier about Tesla's Supercharger expansion, and 2 new automakers have been added to the Supercharger network just this week. First is Honda. The Honda Prologue and the Acura ZDX are now capable of charging at Tesla Superchargers and have access to more than 23,500 selected Tesla Superchargers across the US. This comes alongside availability of the first Honda-approved NACS to CCS DC fast charging adapter. At the same time, Lucid has also gained supercharger access. All Lucid Air vehicles will now have access to the Tesla Supercharger network with 23,500 plus stalls starting on July 31st. They posted about this, saying additionally for 2026 model year, Lucid Air will now feature Lucid Air Touring increases EPA estimated range to 431 miles, new optional 19-inch aeronaut wheels, and an upgraded AC compressor to improve cooling capacity while further reducing cabin ambient noise. Overall, this is a big improvement for Lucid vehicles as far as where they can charge, but one thing that is particularly unfortunate here is that their max speed is 50 kilowatts. They can gain up to 200 miles of range per hour charging at Tesla Superchargers. As Drive Tesla Canada said, despite getting supercharger access, Lucid Air will be capped at 50 kilowatts, making it more of a backup solution than a primary fast charging option for owners. This is very true because the Lucid Air can charge up to 350 kilowatts at other chargers. This is because of a mismatch between Lucid's system, which is a 900 volt plus system, compared to Tesla's 400 volt system for their superchargers. Tesla's supercharger voltage is a lot lower than what the Air can do, which limits its charging speed. But the way that other companies handle this is by splitting the pack, but Lucid doesn't actually do that. That's what the Cybertruck does, and that's what other brands like Hyundai do with their 800 volt architecture charging at Tesla superchargers. It allows them to truly supercharge, versus the Lucid Air is really just AC charging at its max capacity here. It's definitely an unfortunate limitation for Lucid Air vehicles, but they do have supercharger access now. That's all the latest Tesla news for today, so in the meantime, if you want to see why I decided to sell my new Model 3 after about a year, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.